thank once again the heartfelt thank you to Professor Mohanty for his valuable presence and wisdom. We look forward for your continuous support, guidance and stimulation in future also. Thank you, sir. I convey my vote of thanks to the keynote speaker. With a heartfelt and gratitude and reverence, I rise to extend a vote of thanks on the behalf of the English department to our illustrious keynote speaker, Professor Joy Chakravarti, whose eloquence have illuminated us with multiple aspects on various philosophies, reawakening movements, and cultural quarters in today's seminar. Professor Chakravarti, your words have been like a lamp lighting a path, revealing the intricate harmony woven within India's rich tapestry of culture, philosophy, science, and economic thought. With scholarly depth and profound clarity, you have not only enriched our understanding, but have stirred within us a renewed sense of wonder and intellectual curiosity. The reflections have bridged the wisdom of the past with the challenges of the present, urging us to seek knowledge not as a mere information, but as a means of enlightenment and transformation. Your presence here, despite the demands of your time and commitment, is a testament to your generosity of spirit and dedication to the pursuit of knowledge. We are deeply indebted to you for sharing your wisdom, for igniting, stimulating discussions, for inspiring us to delve deeper into the vast oceans of the Indian knowledge system. We conclude this session, we carry with us the echoes of your thought, Professor Chakravarti, and the inspiration to keep alive the spirit of inquiry and reflection. We remain hopeful in that is not an end, but a beginning of deeper engagement, richer dialogues, and the continued guidance of luminous minds as you are. A profound gratitude from the Department of English. I thank the President of the Managing Committee, Shri Ramlal Gupta ji. I thank the Honorable Principal of the College, Dr. Aarti Trehan, for her constant support. I thank the delegates who are present in the session and the delegates who are joining the meeting online throughout the country. I thank all the senior faculty of the college, and I thank Dr. Priyanka, the co-convener of the seminar, for providing me the chance to convey the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we conclude the inaugural session that was filled with intellectual stimulation, engaging discussions, and meaningful exchanges. A heartfelt thanks to all, to both our dignitaries, Professor Mohanty and Professor Chakravarti. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, sir. For the participants, since we were to start with our technical session 1 at 1:45, so we'll not take a break, and right away we'll move on to our technical session 1. I hand over the session to Madam Rajni. She'll be taking charge of the next 2 sessions. Thank you, sir. Professor Iqbal. Professor,
yes,
have you joined?
Yes,
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Priyanka Singh. A very good afternoon to all. I, Ms. Rajni Dhawan, Session Coordinator, Technical Session 1, welcome you all in this one-day national seminar on Indian Knowledge System, Harmonizing Culture, Philosophy, Science, and Economic Thought. I am extremely delighted to welcome our today's resource person for Plenary Talk 1, respected Sir Dr. Javed Iqbal Bhatt, PG Department of English, South Campus, University of Kashmir. Before inviting our today's resource person for its plenary talk, I introduce such a dynamic personality among us. Dr. Javed Iqbal Bhatt is an academic, writer, translator, and a cultural critic. He teaches at the Postgraduate Department of English, South Campus, University of Kashmir. Sir has completed his PhD from Department of English, Ohio University, USA. Dr. Javed has done his MPhil and MA program from the Center of English Study, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Sir is the author of 7 books, including Rapture, Oxford University Press, and Dissolution called Peace, Hyper Calling. Dr. Javed Bhatt teaches literary theory and criticism, British fiction, Indian English writing across genres, modern British poetry. In addition to teaching and research responsibility, Sir is currently working as an Assistant Dean, Student Welfare, South Campus, University of Kashmir. Welcome, sir. Sir, we are truly honored to have you as a resource person for this plenary session. Now, I invite respected Sir Dr. Javed Iqbal Bhatt to share knowledge on exploring ideas, a review of the literary heritage of Kashmir from the classical period to the current. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Miss Rajni Dhawan. I am also, first of all, I extend my thanks to the college, Dr. Principal of the college, Dr. Arya Dr. Priyanka Singh, and I think Dr. Kavita Mahajan, the co-convener of the seminar, for this opportunity uh, to be present in this seminar and share my ideas on the theme of this particular seminar. Now, I have just a second, I will start this. So are the slides visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, so good afternoon and namaste to all of you who are present there in this seminar. My topic for this particular talk, that has been the time that has been given to me, is exporting ideas, a review of the literary heritage of Kashmir from the classical period to the current. Now, when I looked at the theme of this particular seminar, Indian knowledge systems is one of the key areas that is to be covered. I have been engaging with this particular theme for a couple of years in the past. In fact, last year also we had two, one international conference, one national conference that I organized with the help of ICSR. So I'm engaged with this theme and thought that this topic that I have chosen would be appropriate to deliberate upon in this seminar. And I have not any specific, because I want, because the audience, as I was told, is a very heterogeneous audience from across India. I thought it would be proper for me to kind of give an overview of the literary heritage, the intangible cultural heritage that has come out of Kashmir over the past 2000 years. It is a very broad area that I will try to cover, especially focusing on some milestones in this period. Not the whole, if you focus on any one specific text that or any author, it will take a long time, but it is kind of a primer, a kind of an introduction to my audience here, to give them some idea as to the contributions that have come from Kashmir to the larger Indian knowledge system, to the larger uh, panorama of literary writings that has emerged out of Kashmir. So The title is Exporting Ideas, a review of the literary heritage of Kashmir from the classical period to the current. To begin with, if you look at the classical period of Kashmir as to the kind of texts, the kind of events, the authors that came out of Kashmir in the classical period, a huge number of texts. In fact, I think some of the top classical Sanskrit, poets have emerged from Kashmir and have significantly contributed to the metaphysical, philosophical arena of India as a whole. If you begin with, for example, Nilmat Purana, a text that has come from, I think, the specific date is not clear as to when this text was written or compiled. And the information we get about this text is actually from Raja Tarangni that came in the 11th century by Kalhana Pandit. So it is from that text, retrospectively, we get an idea about this text. There were some recensions of this text as well, and some interpolations also occurred. But this is the 4th to 7th century text, giving us, in fact, this text can be called in a way national epic of Kashmir, but at the same time also producing a cultural history of this region, not just Kashmir. Largely it is about Kashmir, but it also covers a wider area, giving us the history of the original. In fact, the myth of the origin of Kashmir also is traced to this particular text as to how Kashmir emerged, how it was a lake, a satisar, and how demons had made life of the inhabitants terrible. And then there is a divine intervention. The water is emptied out, and the valley is created out of that. So, at the same time, while I am talking about these texts, I am talking about, say, Buddhist Council or Abhinav Gupta. I think the point to be remembered here is that there is, if not an organic connection between these texts and events, there is definitely a connection worth deliberating upon, worth keeping in mind. That Nilmat Purana is connected to Raja Tarangni, and the Raja Tarangni has connections to further histories that came out of Kashmir during the medieval period, when Persian language was for about 300 years the official language in Kashmir. So there is a solid thread of connecting these different eras, different events, and different texts from the classical period to even the modern period. Maybe the connection slightly broke during the medieval period as Islam emerged into Kashmir, but then it did not completely disappear. There was a uh, dormant layer that continued. Say, for example, when we talk about that Persian classic histories emerged in medieval period, and they took elements from the classical period, but then the language was Persian, and the Kashmiri language was, it was at the popular level. It worked out at the popular level. So there, it retained that classical touch in its literary output, and that then also transferred to the modern period. I will talk about it when we look at other things that I have prepared here. Then we have Fourth Buddhist Council. Although there was some controversy as to where the Fourth Buddhist Council took place, but largely the agreement among scholars is that this council occurred in Kashmir around 72 AD, when Kushana king Kanish, when he was confused as to, when he looked at the number of sects and schools that had emerged in Buddhism, and he wanted to bring all these texts together and let these monks and Buddhist scholars sit down to prepare something comprehensive and as well as understandable, some order to the diverse writings and schools and sects that had emerged. So that also took place in Kashmir around 72 AD, when for around 6 months these scholars sat down, and finally, when we talk about exporting ideas, the Mahayana and the Hinayana schools, that was an offshoot of this Fourth Buddhist Council, that then spread to other areas. In fact, the Chinese traveler Huan Song, who has written about this Fourth Buddhist Council and whose idea that it happened in Kashmir in a particular area called Kanzalbal, which is close to Srinagar, and then its impact on China. It was, in fact, if you look at the literary heritage, literary outputs, or philosophical and metaphysical outputs from Kashmir, 750 to 900 AD is a very rich period in which you have a lot of this, uh, the literary heritage that came prior to this period was finally compiled, given shape, and given a particular order, and then it is dissemination into the neighboring regions of Kashmir, even to China or even to Tibet, because Ladakh was close and Ladakh was closer to Tibet. So Kashmir to Ladakh and from there to Tibetan regions, and even to the larger, mainland India, where these thoughts and these ideas they began to be disseminated. Why Kashmir was chosen? Perhaps because of the climate, because initially the suggestion was somewhere outside, and then it was thought the climate is not good, it is very quite damp, and for 6 months it is not possible, and there is enough food supply available in Kashmir. So it was found to be the proper space where we could engage in deliberations and discussions. And finally, we had Mahayana. And in fact, Sanskrit also began to be formally used after this Buddhist council in case of these scholarly writings. And an important person who was born in Kashmir, although his ancestors, it is believed, had come from outside Kashmir, is Abhinav Gupta. Now, Abhinav Gupta is important in many ways. Uh, when I was doing my master's degree, we had this text called Natya Shastra. It was there for the first time, although in Kashmir we had in our school curriculum, he was not there present. So for the first time, when I was doing this master's program, and I came across Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, and then from there the name Abhinav Gupta also emerged, because his Abhinav Bharti is, you can say, an exegesis of what is contained in Natya Shastra. The aesthetics and the poetics and the theorization around that is contained in Abhinav Bharti, because when they are talking about the rasa theory, so he then creates this idea of the Shanta rasa as the eighth one, and Ananda as the basic mental state. So he is quite important in this arena of exporting ideas, because then he, in fact, if you look at Aristotle's Poetics, I think from our side, we may say that Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra is perhaps an equivalent of that Poetics, although the ingredients and the theorization around that may be different. But there is something comparable, and Abhinav Bharti is perhaps an authoritative commentary on Bharata's Natya Shastra. There were other commentaries, but Abhinav Gupta summarizes those recensions which have disappeared. He summarizes what they have said, but his this Abhinav Bharti is considered to be a very authoritative commentary on the aesthetics of theater, aesthetics, the aesthetics of theory, how he gives a proper dimension, a proper shape. And not only in case of theory, Abhinav Gupta also, in his Danya Lok Lochan, where he talks about the Dwani, which Anand Vardhana had expounded, he is the one who further deliberates, or even his Tantra Loka, which is, in a way, you can see the commentary on Kashmir Trikashaivism, Kashmiri Shaivism or Trikashaivism, the non-dualistic, idealistic, monastic metaphysics. In his Tantra Loka, he deliberates upon, again, a commentary on that thought system that came out of Kashmir. So quite an impressive figure, which, if you look at the intangible cultural heritage of Kashmir, he forms an important milestone in that respect. I won't go into detail as to his, further contributions. It is not only Tantraloka or his Abhinav Bharati or his Dunya Lok Lochan, which he has written. In addition to that, he had his hands filled with other engagements, literary in terms of literature. Then, if you come to an important writer once again, this I'm still in the classical period. In fact, if you compare the classical, the medieval, and the modern period, the classical period has done a significant contribution in terms of the heritage. Hence, it is relevance to the larger whole of Indian knowledge system, because most of these, the contribution that it has made to Sanskrit literature and philosophy is, is humongous. One has to only open on the I think when Jawaharlal Nehru University for the first time opened a special center for Sanskrit studies, if you look at the syllabus of the curriculum, you'll find a bulk of it is has its connection to the classical period in Kashmir. But unfortunately, not much within Kashmir. Unfortunately, not much of research has been done in this field. It is not perhaps was not, but recently there has been a renewal of that. Was not considered to be a very serious field of inquiry and investigation. Recent in 20th century, there has occurred this renewal of focus on this, especially after the invention of the European philologists, the Orientalists who rediscovered, we can say, these texts, translated them, and then there was a widespread spread of these classical Sanskrit period. Now, if you come to Vasugupta now, Vasugupta is his Shiv Sutras are considered to be the foundational text of Kashmir Shaivism, although he had inherited from the previous Agamas, but his Shiv Sutras is regarded as the foundational text. Now, sometimes I wonder why the transition to Islam in Kashmir was somewhat smooth, although there was violence. Maybe perhaps because of the originary theories of Kashmir Shaivism and perhaps Islam are somewhat similar, because you have non-dualistic, this monastic monotheism like Kashmir Shaivism, and then the monotheism that came from outside did not have that sharp contrast. So maybe that was perhaps a reason of a somewhat smooth transition towards a new metaphysics, new thought system that came into Kashmir around 14th century in the form of Islam, and especially Sufi Islam, and the acceptance of Sufi Islam because of the previous deep and long tradition that pre-existed in Kashmir. And even the origin of Shiv Sutras, it is said that Vasugupta, there are three theories. So one is that he had this, he got these sutras in his dream, and the other one is that he found them inscribed on a big rock, which kind of echoes in us the idea of Moses receiving those commandments inscribed on a particular rock, somewhat similar. So this is the Advaita Shaivism, and then his own commentary, although there were some other people who also have produced a commentary on Shiv Sutras. His Pand Karika, which is a commentary he himself gave about the Shiv Sutra. There was decline of this focus on this Trika Shaivism and Shiv Sutras or Advaita Shaivism in the medieval period, although, as I have said, that there was a subterranean expression of this form of metaphysics. There was an engagement with this form of metaphysics and epistemic base. And it is only then in the 20th century when we have a renewed attention, renewed interest in this particular thought system, especially if you look at Swami Lakshmanju, who just lived just 2 kilometers from where I am talking right now. in 20th century, he is the one who then, again revisited this thought system and talked about it, deliberated about it. And then there were some Western scholars who came around, who then translated it into English. So there was a renewed interest in 20th century, because if you look at 20th century, you are aware about the political developments that occurred. There was a shift in the power structures. The levers of power had already changed. That patronage then led to a renewed interest in this classical period production, literary productions. And this had impact on Shakta traditions, Nath school, and Hatha yoga. So it did not, just like the other literary texts that came from Kashmir, remain stuck within Kashmir, but went outside Kashmir as well. So many, Orissa, Maharashtra areas, this Shaiva systems, they have prevailed for a long time. Then we have an important writer, and all of this, as I said a while back, 750 to 900 AD, at maximum you can stretch it to 950. So around these 200 years, very rich, very dense with debates and discussions and the production of these texts and the commentaries on these texts. There was something in the intellectual firmament at that time that led to this intense creative activity. So now we have Somdev. Somdev is famous for the Katha Sarit Sagar, the sea of stories, ocean of stories. But he acknowledges that he had taken it from Gunadiya, his Brihat Katha. We don't have available Gunadiya's Brihat Katha or some recensions. Perhaps he has taken it from them with some interpolation, with some changes. But right now we have Somdeva's Katha Sarit Sagar, which has been translated into English. And then in King Zainul Abidin's court, who came when Islam came to Kashmir, and his court was buzzing with translation activities. He got it translated into Persian, and it went to outside Kashmir with the help of that translation. In fact, we later on find that a lot of these Sanskrit texts, when Darashiko, Aurangzeb's brother, he did a lot of translation activity, which led to the transmission of these texts from the Indian mainland to outside countries, especially Iran, where Persian, or or other countries, regions which were under the Persian influence. Even King Akbar, when he invaded Kashmir and annexed Kashmir in around 1586, he took a lot of these texts and got them translated from his courtiers. So you had the beginning of the outpouring of these texts in the form of translation with the help of King. King Zainul Abidin is considered to be very Catholic king, somewhat of a golden period in the history of Kashmir, where there were these, his court, he brought in scholars from almost all schools, and he asked them to work in this field of translation, reviving the old texts and getting them translated. Professor H.H. Wilson in 19th century also got this text translated into English. In fact, if you look at Salman Rushdie's Harun and the Sea of Stories, that is taken from Katha Sarit Sagar. A lot of stories the Vikram Betal we had in childhood, they have their origin in this Katha Sarit Sagar. So we don't know. I mean, we have then Sindbad, that Arabian Nights. Some scholars are building connections between that Arabian Nights and Katha Sarit Sagar. Originally, they were told because Somdev was a courtier, and for the queen's wife who had some issue, for the stories were created for her. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make here, which underpins my presentation, is that ideas got exported from Kashmir. If you look at the geographical region of Kashmir, it is not that big. It is surrounded by mountains, a valley, and to imagine that so many literary ideas, texts, and people have stayed here and worked to create these creative outputs is something that does not fail to amaze any person who is familiar with the geography of Kashmir, as small it being. Then we move to the medieval period where we have Laleshwari, we have Mullah Tahir Gani Kashmiri and Parmanand. I'm just, in between you'll find there are a lot of other people. This is just my perspective as to the people who have shaped uh, Kashmiri thought or who have influenced outside regions uh, of Kashmir. So Laleshwari is considered to be a Shaivite who forms a kind of a bridge between the classical Sanskrit thought and the medieval popular Kashmiri thought. Because her works, the poetic style, the stanzas, they they are very catchy. They became popular, and many people even now, especially the older generation, remembers those walks of us. Sir Richard Cornack Temple, who has written this book, The Word of Lalla, he analyzing those stanzas and in fact claims that these works are an extension of that the idea of Turkashaivism, that deep within, hidden within that is this it carries the essence of Vasugupta's those Shiv Sutras or the Skanda Karika that he had later on created in the form of a commentary. So Laleshwari is kind of a bridge between, you can say, medieval Kashmir and the classical Kashmir, but she is anchored in the Turkashaivism thought. She's not, many would try to link her with some other thought system, but there are persuasive arguments by different scholars based on evidence from her works that she is essentially connected to this Kashmiri Turkashaivism. Then we have Mullah Tahir Gani Kashmiri, on whom recently scholarship has come out, a medieval Kashmiri, who became famous not so much in mainland India, though he wrote during Aurangzeb's time, but he became very famous in the Iranian areas where Persian. So he came from Kashmir, but because of his vast writings in Persian, it is believed that he was invited. Many Iranian scholars came to Kashmir just to meet him, and Ghalib, Mir Taqi Mir, and Iranians, and even Iqbal, who later on, produced a new idea. Although initially he was in for a united Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan of that fame. So he also refers to this, and the emperor at that time, he invited him and wanting to know that how not having Persian a mother language, in spite of that, he is able to produce such writings in Persian language. That even the heartland of Persian Iran, the scholars from that place are eager to meet him in Kashmir, and it is said that many of them came to Kashmir. Then we have Permanent Cole in the medieval period, although the landscape was, had changed. But he had his famous Leelas and the Bhakti tradition. He builds a connection in that area. Permanent Cole also, he had his connections to Turkashaivism also. That is why I'm saying that the impression may be gained that once Islam came and all that was produced in classical Sanskrit period simply disappeared. But that did not happen. You find that not only in Permanent, but also Rupa Bhavani, who's a famous, and even in fact, just now I said Leshwari, it may have remained somewhat, clouded, but it did not, like the sun, disappear. It was there behind, constantly giving warmth to people and infusing their thought system and giving illumination. Because the essence of Kashmir Shaivism is the philosophy of recognition, pratibijniya. So you have the idea of recognition. The ultimate uh, goal is self-recognition, and then the transformation because of that. So anyway, moving forward, we have in the modern period a lot of people. I'm especially fond of Sadh Hasan Manto, his partition stories. I don't know how many of you, there are these famous letters that are exchanged between Jawaharlal Nehru and Sadh Hasan Manto. If you read uh, those letters, in one of the letters, you have Jawaharlal Nehru talking about Manto, and you know, and Manto writing to Jawaharlal Nehru, very upset with Jawaharlal Nehru as to what has happened to India and how you have, all the partition trauma. Uh, there are these resonances of partition trauma in those letters. The word Manto is a measuring unit. Is a measuring unit, and he wrote some of the. I think uh, without Manto, without reading his short stories, I don't think one can get the essence of uh, partition as to what partition was and what partition did to the lives of ordinary people. Uh, Ordinary people. They are part of curriculum also. They have been translated, but in translation you may get the idea, but you don't get the feeling of that. As we say in Urdu, you get the mafhum, but you don't get the tasir. Then you have Anwar Shah Kashmiri, anti-colonial freedom movement. He was part of that, and he not only in that, but also the Deobandi school of thought considered it is part of the curriculum. His thought on Shah Kashmiri is his home has recently been converted into a heritage building. Then Iqbal, whose ancestors are traced to Kashmir, he belonged to the Sapru, I think the Sapru family or the Kol family, and later on, his family migrated to Sialkot, and then we know what happened later on, or what happened afterwards. He wrote, we mostly look at his Urdu writings, his Urdu poetry. Some of his Urdu poetry was very popular in schools, and I think it is still. Like, for example, the famous prayer, Labyati hai dua ban ke tamanna meri, or even Sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamar. Although later on, uh, you know, an atypical case of self-plagiarism, he wrote something else, converted Sare jahan se acha, the line into another line. So, for example, he's a Muslim hai, sare, the whole world is now our watan, not just Hindustan. But his Persian writings, they are, I think he wrote more in Persian, if I'm not wrong, than he wrote in Urdu. And in fact, in English also, his reconstruction of Muslim thoughts, if that is the title, reconstruction of Muslim thought, he wrote. So then even Jawaharlal Nehru, his ancestors, and the word Nehru, it is Neher, because I think it was originally Kol. When he migrated to Delhi, they were living by the side of a canal, and then the surname changed to Nehru. We know about his contributions in modern period. Then even Salman Rushdie, his ancestors, they, if you read his Shalimar the Cloud, it is dedicated to his grandparents who belonged in Midnight's Children, the famous book the novel that he wrote, which was a kind of a paradigm shift in Indian English writing, a kind of linguistic innovation that he produced. It begins in Kashmir with Adam Aziz, and he returns from Germany, and he has this moral crisis that he faces. And later on, national allegory is built from that point onwards. So anyway, I won't go further than that, and I thought in this presentation I will give you a broad overview as to the contributions. All of this is part of the heritage, intangible cultural heritage, we can call it, and within the larger this Indian knowledge system, as to how there has been an interchange of ideas from between Kashmir and the surrounding regions, and it is acknowledged. Uh, uh, if you look at the curriculum, not only within, I mentioned special center for Sanskrit studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, but if you look at syllabus at some uh, Sanskrit institutes outside the country, you'll find a lot of texts from that have emerged from the classical period, or even the medieval period. Mullah Ghani Kashmiri, you find uh, his contributions, his literary output in the syllabus in different countries of the world. So I think that is it. Hopefully, next time, if I get an opportunity, I can talk about specific texts, specific theories, the rasa theory there of Abhinav Gupta, how different it is from the Natya Shastra theory, what kind of addition is or deletion is did he make. But the bottom line is that the the place was thriving with ideas. They were deliberating, and they had in mind a larger area around it. It was not, they weren't ensconced within this particular region. It was in their consciousness there is this outer, in fact, Shahnama, we don't know how much of a connection Shahnama and Raja Tarangi. I did not mention Raja Tarangi here. Perhaps I think Jawaharlal Nehru mentioned, is it in Discovery of India or some other book, that this was, across India, you don't find much historical texts, historical books. Rajatarangni is one where you get from Kashmir a contribution to the larger Indian knowledge system, a historical book. So is Rajatarangni connected to Shahnama that was produced in Iran? So that connection is yet to be perhaps thought about, and maybe connections will be built. So that was it. I thank once again to the organizing team, the principal, and the conveners and co-conveners of the seminar. And I also thank the audience for listening to this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sparing your precious time with us and enlighten us with your knowledge and valuable thoughts. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I request Madam Dr. Priyanka Singh, co-convener of this seminar, for vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Rajni. It is indeed a privilege to extend a heartfelt thanks to Professor Bhatt for his illuminating talk on exporting ideas, a review of literary heritage of Kashmir from classical period to the current. Professor Bhatt, your insightful discourse has taken us on a fascinating journey through Kashmir's literary landscape, tracing its evolution from the classical Sanskrit texts to the contemporary voices, shaping its rich intellectual traditions. Your analysis of how Kashmiri literature has traversed borders, influencing and being influenced by diverse traditions have been particularly enlightening. The intersections of history, language, and identity that you have so eloquently explored will undoubtedly inspire further research and engagement among scholars and students alike. So on behalf of the organizing committee, our institution, and everyone present here, I extend my sincere gratitude for sharing your expertise with us today, sir. Your words have not only deepened our appreciation of Kashmiri literary heritage, but have also encouraged us to rethink the ways in which literature shapes and is being shaped by the global dialogues. So once again, sir, I thank you so much for your invaluable contribution and sparing your time. Thank you so much, sir. We look forward to engaging with you and for a long-term association that we can have between you and our institution. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I heartily welcome to our resource person for plenary talk 2, respected Madam Dr. Sahita Joshi ji, Faculty, Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai. Welcome you, ma'am. It gives me immense pleasure